So do y'all mind if I rant a little bit more about Nintendo? Because that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do today. So if you didn't watch my last video talking about Nintendo, please go do so. I talked mainly about the pricing of how they're going to charge for their games. I mentioned how I wasn't really that bothered by the price of the console specifically. It was a little bit more than I was expecting, sure, but $450 for the console wasn't that much of a surprise when I thought that the price of the games is still going to be around $60 to $70. But because of the fact that they're being charged for way more than that, which is around $80 to $90, that's when I started to have a really big issue with it. So we're getting more and more information about the Switch 2 and the games moving forward. Obviously, there's more stuff revolving around the game key cards, and I think there's one game that's supposed to be coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2 that is exclusive to that console but has the game key card. So, you know, if it's happening to third-party games, it's also happening to first-party games. So don't quote me on that, though. Please correct me if I am wrong about that in the comments. Just the more that we talk about the Switch 2, the more that things genuinely seem to get absolutely worse for this company. So it's not even just the fact that the console is $450, $500 if you want to pay for the bundle that comes with Mario Kart World. But if you want to buy Mario Kart World solo by itself, that's $80. If you want to buy Donkey Kong Bonanza, that's $70. For some reason, it's $10 cheaper. I guess Nintendo just decided that because Mario Kart can be played with multiple people and online, you can go ahead and just charge that for an extra $10. So that's great. So $450 for the console, $80 for Mario Kart World. Donkey Kong Bonanza is $70. Oh, but then you also have to pay $80 for the Nintendo Switch 2 controller. And if you want to buy more Joy-Cons, that's like probably another $80. If you want to pay for the camera that is just an accessory and you don't really necessarily need it, oh, that's another $50. Oh, there's a button on the controller that is completely pointless unless you have Nintendo Switch Online. And if you want to use the shitty game chat that they have added to the Switch 2, where you can watch your friends play other games, but it runs at like 12 frames per second and looks like dog shit, oh, you're gonna have to pay like another $50 if you want to use Nintendo Switch Online. There is a cheaper option, but you get more for paying for more. So obviously you're gonna go for the more expensive option because you want as many options and more things for what you're paying for. So obviously you're gonna pay for the $50 version. Oh, I almost forgot. They also have the upgraded paths for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and you have to pay $10 for that. So that's not actually too bad. I think that's pretty understandable. I think there are PS4 games that have had an upgrade path for, if you have it, the PS4 version, you can pay like around maybe $10, maybe a little bit less for the PS5 version for when you eventually get a PS5. That's not too bad, but then Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are actually charged for more. So Tears of the Kingdom, when that came out the way that it was priced, and now it's like $70. It's like $70 or $80. Breath of the Wild went up in price, and now that's $70. So if you're wanting to get all of that, you're gonna have to pay upwards to like almost $1,000, like over $900 if you want to buy like everything that I've listed so far. The console, the 2 new Switch games that are coming out, Switch 2 games that are coming out, Nintendo Switch Online, Pro Controller, camera, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Switch 2 versions. It's so much. It's so much. This is so inflated because of the fact that the games are being priced the way that they were. This would probably be cheaper if they were priced like how they were when they first came out, especially Breath of the Wild, which came out like 8 years ago, like almost 9 years ago. So an almost decade-old game is going up in price because of the fact that a new version, quote unquote, is being re-released on Nintendo's new console that's coming out in a few months. That's absolutely insane. And then not even on top of that, when you buy Breath of the Wild Switch 2 Edition, it doesn't even come with the expansion pass content from when you bought it on the Switch. Meaning the DLC that you had previously bought on the Switch 1 version, you now need to go ahead and buy again. Because for whatever reason, the Switch 2 version doesn't have that content. Why? I don't know, other than corporate greed coming from Nintendo. That's absolutely ludicrous. So you're having to pay even more money to get content that you have probably already bought, especially me, because I first played Breath of the Wild on the Wii U because I didn't have a Nintendo Switch yet. But then when I got a Nintendo Switch, I then bought Breath of the Wild again because I wanted to be able to play it on my Nintendo Switch. So I bought the game twice, and so now Nintendo is asking me to buy it again. They're asking me to pay even more money for a game that I have already bought twice for their other 2 consoles. Why? Like it's actually insane. And then like their packing game that's not a packing game, their welcome tour. I think I mentioned this in the last video, but I'm mentioning it here because the Nintendo Switch welcome tour is basically just a glorified tech demo for what the console and the Joy-Cons are capable of. And it's definitely very interesting. I've heard some really like fun things about it. I'm not even against the idea of this existing because the PS5 did that with Astro's Playroom, and I played Astro's Playroom and it was a lot of fun. And it introduced a lot of what the console was capable of and what the DualSense controller was actually capable of being able to do. It was a fun time. It was a fun game. And then it got its own standalone game called Astrobot, and it ended up winning Game of the Year. Like, Astro's Playroom was a pack-in game that did exceptionally well there. People loved Astro, and then they decided to go ahead and make their own standalone game, and it did exceptionally well. And then I was told this story that apparently Reggie himself, you know, the former CEO of Nintendo of America, had to try to convince Nintendo to, in America, not even in other places of the world, just specifically in America at the very least, to allow Wii Sports to be a packing game. So imagine a world where Wii Sports wasn't a packing game for the Wii, and it didn't end up becoming as popular as it currently is. The popularity of Wii Sports is absolutely insane. Imagine if Wii Sports wasn't a packing game when the Wii had first came out in America. Would it have been as popular as it was? Would it have been as successful? Who knows? Probably not, though. That's my assumption. That's my guess. And then Doug Bowser, the current CEO of Nintendo of America, basically said in an interview that if you can't afford the Switch 2's price point, there are other Nintendo Switch platforms available for people who want to get into the gaming universe for Nintendo. So they're pretty much saying that if you're too broke to pay for a Switch 2, $450, just go buy a Switch. Which, for those of you who don't know your history in the gaming culture and gaming history and media, there was a man named Don Matrick, and he, back in 2013, when the Xbox One had first came out, he was talking about the console and its capabilities and the fact that the console was always online. There was no way to turn it off. There was nothing that you could do about it. It was always going to be online. But the issue with the Xbox One was that it was treated more so as a way to be able to engage with TV, and that was basically it. It wasn't even really treated like it was a console. It was treated completely different than what it was supposed to be. And so people complained about the console always being online. Don Matrick said, if you don't like it, go buy an Xbox 360.
They create and how it links games and entertainment, the functionality of the box, some of the advantages that you get of having a box that is designed to use an online state. So that, to me, is a future-proof choice. And I think people could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it. And fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device.
Xbox never recovered from that. They continued to keep going downhill as a game console publisher. Their exclusives started going down the drain. They started losing exclusives. Xbox doesn't even really make exclusives anymore anyways, right? Because you could just play those games on PC, and they're probably going to eventually come to PlayStation as well. So the fact that Doug Bowser essentially said, not verbatim, but pretty damn close to what Don Matrick had said to over a decade ago, almost like 12 years ago now. This whole thing, with more information and more news that we get from Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch 2 and how they're handling this console, I don't know, man. I think that if Nintendo fans are sick of hearing this type of news, I think they need to not buy this console and not support it. But Nintendo fans are fanatic, right? They're gonna go ahead and buy the console anyways. I had a guy seriously try to argue with me that the price of Mario Kart World isn't that big of a deal, because if you really wanted Mario Kart World along with the Switch, just buy the bundle. And it's like, well, what if I can't actually currently afford the bundle right now? Because it's $50 extra that I don't have. So I can only buy the base version, which is the Nintendo Switch 2. I can only afford the Nintendo Switch 2. I would then have to later buy Mario Kart World, and it's going to be at $80. And Nintendo never drops their prices. Mario Odyssey is still a $60 game. Breath of the Wild on the Switch 1 is still like a $60 game. They never drop their prices. They never make them cheaper. They're exactly like Activision. They never drop their prices to be cheaper than what they should be. Even though their games came out over a decade ago, more than a decade ago, they never drop them. And all Nintendo has been doing for the past like week is just showing their greed and showing that the only thing that they care about is making a profit and sucking up as much money as they can from the consumer. And I can't support that. So will I ever buy a Switch 2? Maybe if it ever goes down in price or I can find it on sale. But at the current price of where it currently is, and the way that they're charging their games, I can't support this company. And I like Nintendo. I love Nintendo a lot. I've loved a lot of their games before in the past. But this is unacceptable. And I think a lot of Nintendo fans need to band together and stand up against the company that has brought a lot of happiness to their lives. And I fully acknowledge that this is a very difficult thing to do. But I think if we want things in the gaming landscape to be better and not go down this route that it's currently on, I think we need to stand together and make our voices heard that this is unacceptable and we can't allow this to continue any further. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just a little bit more ranting about the Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo as a company and how they're currently treating the games industry right now. It's very frustrating. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you liked the video, be sure to like, and if you want to see more, please be sure to subscribe. I want to give a shout out to Renegade Enigma for being a member on the channel. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.